Hello, Chicago. If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, who still wonders if the dream of our founders is alive in our time, who still questions the power of our democracy, tonight is your answer. It's the answer spoken by young and old, rich and poor, Democrat and Republican, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, gay, straight, disabled and not disabled, Americans who send a message to the world that we have never been just a collection of individuals or a collection of red states and blue states. We are and always will be the United States of America.
Grant Park in Chicago, the crowd that gathered there the night America made history by electing Barack Obama. Just 4 years earlier, he was a state senator from Illinois. I'm Brian Williams. He is a man from Kenya and Kansas and Chicago, from Hawaii and Harvard by way of Indonesia. He was born with the unlikely name Barack Hussein Obama, and now he becomes the 44th president of the United States. The first African-American president in our history. He will occupy a White House that was built by slaves. This program is about how he got to where he is today, against long odds during the longest and easily the strangest election season in American history, to attain the most powerful office on earth. And we begin our story, his story, by revisiting November 4th, 2008.
From NBC News, Decision 2008, Election Night.
Good evening, and we are already underway. Vermont goes into the Barack Obama column. Barack Obama is being awarded Pennsylvania by this network. His home state of Illinois has fallen to his category. As we say, now begins the run. Way up the tip of New England, the great state of Maine. Down again the eastern seaboard, the state of Maryland in the Obama category. 9 p.m. We've been at this for 2 hours. Storylines are starting to emerge, specifically a storyline favoring Barack Obama, the state of Michigan, Minnesota, the Empire State, New York. This is a big headline to come on the air with. The state of Ohio, and can you name one that was fought over with more force? Then at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, with victories in California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii, Barack Obama went over the top and won the presidency. 11 p.m. on the East Coast. We're back on the air, and we have news. There will be young children in the White House for the first time since the Kennedy generation. Despite a long and often bitterly contentious campaign, John McCain was gracious in defeat.
My friends, we have come to the end of a long journey. The American people have spoken, and they have spoken clearly. This is an historic election, and I recognize the special significance it has for African Americans and for the special pride that must be theirs tonight. I've always believed that America offers opportunities to all who have the industry and will to seize it. Senator Obama believes that too.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America. The road ahead will be long. Our climb will be steep. We may not get there in 1 year or even in one term, but America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there. I promise you, we as a people will get there.
Many saw Obama's victory as a decisive repudiation of George W. Bush. But the morning after the election, the 43rd president acknowledged the milestone reached by the 44th.
No matter how they cast their ballots, all Americans can be proud
of the history that was made yesterday. They chose a president whose journey represents a triumph of the American story, testament to hard work, optimism, and faith in the enduring promise of our nation. Many of our citizens thought they would never live to see that day. This moment is especially uplifting for a generation of Americans who witnessed the struggle for civil rights with their own eyes. And 4 decades later, see a dream fulfilled.
For Obama, the road to fulfilling that dream really started 4 years earlier, when, as a relatively unknown Illinois state senator, he arrived on the national stage.
I stand here today, grateful for the diversity of my heritage, aware that my parents' dreams live on in my 2 precious daughters. I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
Barack Hussein Obama was born on August 4th, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii. The name Barack means blessed in Arabic. In a 2004 interview on the Today program, Obama made light of his unusual name.
You know, with the name, I would say my father's from Kenya and my mother is from Kansas, and people call me Alabama or Yo Mama or, you know, Bahama. And I think people appreciate the fact that I could joke about it.
Obama's parents, Ann Dunham and Barack Obama Sr., met at the University of Hawaii, where they were both students. They married in 1960, but separated when Obama was only 2 and eventually divorced. Barack Sr. left Hawaii to attend Harvard University on a scholarship to get his PhD, leaving young Barack and his mother behind. Obama didn't see him again until he was 10, when his father returned to visit the family for just a month. After that, they stayed in touch, but that short visit was the last time he ever saw his father, who died 11 years later in a car accident. In his 1995 memoir, Dreams from My Father, which became a Grammy Award-winning audiobook, Obama recalled what his mother had told him about the father he barely knew.
He hadn't cut corners, though, or played all the angles. He was diligent and honest no matter what it cost him. He had led his life according to principles that demanded a different kind of toughness.
When Obama was 6, his mother remarried an Indonesian man, Lolo Saturo, and the family moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. Young Barack adapted quickly to his new surroundings, a skill that served him well in the years since. And his early years provided valuable experience living among a diverse mix of races and cultures.
I grew up not only in Hawaii, but also in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. I've got a half-sister who's half Indonesian, who just married a Chinese Canadian. So I've got a new niece who has my DNA but looks completely different. And so I'm constantly reminded of the fact that I'm connected to the people I see. That I know their stories because they're my story too.
His mom challenged him academically. I mean, she just wanted him to learn as much as he could.
When Obama was 9, his mother separated from his stepfather and moved the family back to Hawaii. There, Obama attended a prestigious private school, the Punahou Academy.
Well, he was an all-around guy, well-liked, very personable, very respectful. He was very articulate, eloquent, carried himself very well and spoke very well.
As a teenager, Barack Obama displayed his competitive side, playing the game he still loves, basketball. And his intellectual side was nourished by books, many of them about African-American life, by authors including Richard Wright, Ralph Ellison, Langston Hughes, and Alex Haley. By the time he reached high school, Barack Obama was struggling to make sense of his multicultural background. As he said in Dreams from My Father, he was trying to understand where he fit in.
I was engaged in a fitful interior struggle. I was trying to raise myself to be a black man in America, and beyond the given of my appearance, no one around me seemed to know exactly what that meant.
Barack Obama has candidly acknowledged that he used drugs and did some drinking when he was in high school. He explains why in his book, saying it was, quote, to push the questions of who I was out of my mind. In 1979, still a teenager, Obama left Hawaii to attend Occidental College in Los Angeles, where that interior struggle he talked about continued. It was a confused time in his life, but also a transitional period because it was there that Obama's interest in public service and his knack for delivering a speech started to take root. Again, dreams from my father.
I noticed that people had begun to listen to my opinions. It was a discovery that made me hungry for words. Not words to hide behind, but words that could carry a message, support an idea.
After 2 years, Obama transferred to Columbia University in New York, where he studied political science. It was at Columbia that he started to come to terms with who he was and what he wanted to do with his life. He stopped using drugs, as he later wrote in his book, and started to focus on his studies. When he graduated in 1983, Obama stood at a crossroads. He was drawn to community work, but decided to take a job as a research analyst at a consulting firm in New York.
It was a job to put bread on the table. He viewed the job as sort of biding time until he could do what he wanted to do, which is find out how to move people on a grassroots level.
Then destiny came calling in the form of a newspaper ad for a community organizer in Chicago.
So I arranged for a face-to-face interview, and we spent 2 hours talking to one another. He just wanted to learn. He was very hungry to learn.
Obama got the job. He packed his bags and headed to Chicago, not knowing what was ahead, but somehow feeling certain he was now moving in the right direction. In 1985, Barack Obama left New York and a lucrative corporate position to take a job as a community organizer on Chicago's South Side. He coordinated church groups and neighborhood associations, helping them lobby for basic services and amenities. Jerry Kellman was running the organization.
Barack had opportunities to take a job that would have much more status and much more of a future. So why would he be willing to work for $10,000 a year to come to a city where he had never lived before and work with the poor? He had to have some strong motivation to do that.
At age 24, Obama went to work in a sprawling housing project called Altgeld Gardens.
You were isolated geographically, socially, politically, and in that sense, it was a very devastated place.
While Kellman was relieved to have found an African American to work with the community, Obama was still regarded as an outsider.
Just his presence would be upsetting to some local politician who had been able to call all the shots, and so weren't grateful to have him there. So Barack was frequently getting criticized and attacked, and often he would come back to the office and vent some frustration.
The locals were initially skeptical that the skinny kid with the funny name could help them find jobs or even get basic services for the community. Obama organized a delegation to meet with State Senator Emil Jones to talk about the problem of teenage dropouts.
He was with some ministers in the area, and they were organizing to bring about protests to put pressure on the public officials to do something about school dropouts.
Jones was receptive to Obama's proposals and immediately hit it off with the young activist.
He was genuinely sincere. We became good friends while we were working together. As a result of those efforts, we were able to go to the State Board of Education, get funding for dropout programs.
But over the next 3 years, there weren't that many victories for the young organizer. The sheer scale of the problems on Chicago's South Side was overwhelming, and Obama came to the conclusion he would have to find another way to help. He decided to go to law school at Harvard. Obama thought that becoming a lawyer would be useful. He'd started thinking about running for office, some position where he could have a greater impact on public policy. He did well in law school, working hard and playing hoops to unwind.
He loved to smile, and he really smiled when he'd, give his little fake and put up a jump shot and hit it, over you.
While studying at Harvard, Obama continued to spend time in Chicago, and while working at a law firm there one summer, he met a young lawyer named Michelle Robinson.
He took me to one of his community organizing trainings on the South Side. It was a basement full of senior citizens, mostly African American. He took off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves and just launched into the most eloquent, passionate vision of the community and why people need to engage, and people just connected with him in the ways that they do now.
He had a hole in his shoe, had a car that was 1,000 years old, that barely worked. He was someone who was consumed with the world of ideas. And Michelle was a great counterweight to that. She's very, very pragmatic. You know, she's someone who'll say, okay, the balloon has floated high enough. And she is that anchor for him.
Back at law school in 1990, Obama was elected president of the Harvard Law Review, the most prestigious legal journal in the country, becoming the first African American ever to hold the position.
Word got out that he was elected president of the Harvard Law Review. There was a palpable excitement among the entire student body that we were making history.
Attaining such a high-profile position opened a lot of doors for Barack Obama. It gave him what amounted to a ticket to establishment success, but he had other ideas.
He could have had any job in America. He could have clerked for any judge on the Supreme Court. He could have had the most prestigious professorship in the country. He could have gone to the top law firm and made a princely sum of money. And he again went back to Chicago and set down his roots and built on the base that he had created when he was a community organizer after college.
Came back to work on voter registration. I guess he liked Chicago. I never knew at that time that he did have in the back of his mind getting involved more politically as an elected official.
Obama started to practice civil rights law, started teaching at the University of Chicago. During that time, he remained active in the community, but there was more to Obama than resume building. Around this same time, he was getting settled in his personal life. He and Michelle married in 1992 at the Trinity United Church of Christ, a South Side congregation known for its social activism. Obama found a spiritual home there. 3 years later, when he was still in his early 30s, Obama's mother died of ovarian cancer. Her death came just a month after the publication of Obama's deeply felt and very personal memoir, Dreams from My Father, in which he writes about his life and his unusual family background.
It's a book very much about identity. And the amazing thing about the book is I think it captures one of the things that's extraordinary about him, which is he really is a confluence of a lot of different strains of the American identity all in one person.
The following year, in 1996, Obama launched his political career, running for state senator in the South Side district of Hyde Park. The extensive grassroots network he had built in Chicago over the past 11 years proved to be invaluable. Obama won by a substantial margin, but some of his Democratic opponents claimed that he'd won by playing hardball, going to court to challenge the signatures of supporters they needed to enter the primary.
It did ruffle some feathers among established Democrats in Chicago.
The tactic was standard operating procedure in Chicago politics, but some saw it as proof that Obama was in a big hurry to climb the political ladder.
You know, he's 175 pounds of ambition, there's no doubt about that.
And that ambition made Obama a force to be reckoned with in Illinois and later on the national stage.
Raise your right hand.
In January 1997, after winning a cutthroat campaign, 35-year-old Barack Obama was sworn in as an Illinois state senator.
Congratulations.
In Springfield, the state capital, his political career started to take off, but not everyone was cheering him on.
Senator Obama to close.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me just respond in order.
He certainly engendered some jealousies among his colleagues, particularly some of his African-American colleagues.
Motion filed by Senator Obama.
Who thought, who is this guy from Harvard who's dropping in here and thinks he's just all that?
Obama turned to Senate Minority Leader Emil Jones, a powerful figure in the state and a friend from Obama's days as a community organizer on Chicago's South Side.
He suggested to me that give him any tough assignments and he'll work hard in trying to see to it that those assignments were done properly.
But getting those challenging assignments from his mentor only increased the tension between Obama and some of his more experienced Senate colleagues.
At times I felt sorry for him. He's making the presentation, the members are jumping on him, beating him. What the heck do you know what the heck you doing? You just got here and all that type of stuff. But he prevailed.
Thank you, Senator.
In time, Obama made numerous political friends and allies, black and white, Republican and Democrat. He developed a reputation for bridging the political divide to push through legislation. For the most part, the Harvard Law School grad focused on the less well-off among his constituents, helping to deliver tax credits for low-income workers, welfare reforms, increased child care subsidies, and death penalty reform. And there was another place where Obama became known for building bridges, a so-called special committee meeting every week that was actually code for the Wednesday night poker game.
When you're playing poker and you're drinking beer with your fellow legislators, you're going to develop a personal connection.
The voting is open.
That can carry over into passing legislation.
In 1999, Barack and Michelle Obama welcomed the birth of their first child, Malia. Their second daughter, Sasha, arrived 2 years later.
He became a very proud father.
What happened after that?
And Mama came upstairs.
He was excited. The pictures were proudly displayed in his office.
Obama was serving his second term in the state Senate, but it was clear to those who knew him he didn't intend to stick around Springfield for long.
How are you, sir?
After 3 years in state politics, he decided it was time to set his sights on Washington.
We can't afford to wait another 7 years. What's going on, man?
In 2000, he tried for a House seat, taking on popular incumbent Bobby Rush in the Democratic primary. And he lost badly.
He was a little bit too intellectual in his speeches, and I think he learned that politics is more about connecting with people than showing them how smart you are.
There was a number of us that had said to him that maybe this wasn't the right idea, and we were playing cards that night, and nobody really wanted to say anything. And Barack just looked up and he says, "All right, I know you all want to say it. Don't say it, and it's over." And we all laughed, and that was the end of it.
In fact, Obama was so disappointed by the loss that he considered getting out of politics altogether. And things got worse after the 9/11 attacks, when his unique name became something of a liability. It just sounded too uncomfortably close to Osama bin Laden.
I heard comments by certain members when the name Osama and everything, some members even called him that and everything, which I resented them doing that to him based on his name.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
At first, like most Americans, Obama rallied behind the Bush administration's war on terrorism. But then a year later, when it became clear the president's priority had shifted to Iraq, Obama spoke out against it.
What I do oppose is a dumb war. What I do oppose is a rash war.
You know, the march into a war, an unnecessary war, when almost the entire country, you know, is behind it. I mean, you have to have guts to do that.
Obama was politically re-energized. He was a young man feeling the call to run for national office. And when Senator Peter Fitzgerald, a conservative Republican, announced his retirement from the U.S. Senate, Obama jumped at the opportunity.
I will be a candidate for the United States Senate in 2004.
I remember I walked into his office and he said, "I got something to ask you." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I'm thinking of running for U.S. Senate. Would you support me?" And I said, "Yes." And he looked at me in a puzzled look and he said, "Don't you have to think about it for a while?" And I said, "No." I said, "Now you're ready." and it's the right race.
But before Obama could run in the general election, he had to win a tough primary fight with formidable opponents.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
As these two white candidates at the top of the ticket were kind of duking it out over the white vote, he just races right by these two at the end. They were like the two horses in front butting heads against one another, and Obama just raced right by them.
In March of 2004, Obama won a stunning victory in the Democratic primary.
We get this seat for the Democrats in November.
And party leaders began to take notice.
Everyone wanted to talk to him. It was a lot of national attention for a guy who wasn't even a U.S. senator at that point.
Winning can put you on the radar, and Obama all of a sudden was winning when he wasn't supposed to. And a lot of Democrats who had been watching it from a distance wanted to size this guy up, find out who he is, what he's all about. Is he going to keep challenging us all the way to the top?
Obama hadn't even won the U.S. Senate seat when he received an invitation he could not have imagined just a short time earlier. That year's Democratic presidential nominee, John Kerry, asked Obama to deliver the keynote address at the 2004 Democratic National Convention, a speech that would make him a household name and permanently alter the trajectory of his life. In July of 2004, Democrats convened in Boston to nominate their standard-bearers, John Kerry and John Edwards, who would take on George Bush and Dick Cheney in the November election.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Delegates heard speeches by some of the biggest names in the party: Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Al Gore. But there was growing anticipation about a younger and much less familiar Democrat from Illinois, who on the second night of the convention delivered an unforgettable keynote speech.
Barack Obama.
He starts out his speech a little bit slow.
On behalf of the great state of Illinois,
And then he gets into being Barack.
the hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
Then the audience gets into it.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America. The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states. Red states for Republicans, blue states for Democrats. But I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states. We coach Little League in the blue states, and yes, we've got some gay friends in the red states. There are patriots who opposed the war in Iraq, and there are patriots who supported the war in Iraq. We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America.
It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
Hope in the face of difficulty, hope in the face of uncertainty, the audacity of hope. And this country will reclaim its promise, and out of this long political darkness, a brighter day will come. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.
And the tears were rolling down my eyes.
We were all crying. It felt so good. Brock had told us before, he said, don't worry, I'll do you all you guys proud and everything. And he did.
Here comes this guy who nobody had heard of, but had a lot of buzz around him, and he hit the ball out of the park.
After the convention, Obama returned home to Chicago, confident and newly determined to win the race for Senate. His Republican opponent, former investment banker Jack Ryan, had withdrawn from the race, his campaign derailed by a sex scandal. the Republican Party scrambled to find a viable candidate to run against Obama, at one point even offering the job to the legendary Chicago Bears coach Mike Ditka.
The Republican Party here in Illinois was just in a shambles at this point. They couldn't find a candidate to run against this great new hope of the Democrats.
How you doing, sis?
They thought, we really need to put somebody in there and muddy him up a little bit in this race.
That August, just 3 months before the election, the GOP enlisted radio talk show host and former presidential candidate Alan Keyes, who moved to Illinois to take Ryan's place. The campaign was short but contentious, with Keyes accusing Obama of what he called breathtaking naivete for his criticism of the war in Iraq. Keyes also attacked Obama's position on abortion.
Christ would not vote for Barack Obama because Barack Obama has voted to behave in a way that it is inconceivable for Christ to have behaved.
Barack just stayed above the fray and ran a more positive campaign based on the issues.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Obama won in a landslide, winning 70% of the vote, the biggest electoral victory in Illinois history.
Thank you so much.
Sworn in on January 4th, 2005, with his wife and daughters at his side, Obama became only the third African-American elected to the U.S. Senate since Reconstruction.
Dare I say again, this is a guy with a hole in his shoe, whose car barely ran, who was just full of ideas. This was just a most excellent adventure.
Barack Obama had finally arrived in Washington and was eager to make his mark. But as a freshman senator and with the Republicans in control, his impact was limited.
Obama is viewed by other senators as an outside player, someone who has a real ability to captivate the media, but inside the back rooms of the Senate was not much of a factor.
And I think he found that pretty frustrating, that he could do a whole lot more in Illinois than he could do in Washington.
Beyond the Senate chamber, however, Obama was making a name for himself. He was increasingly seen as a passionate advocate for the less fortunate, including the residents of the Gulf Coast, reeling from the devastation of Hurricane Katrina.
Let New Orleans become the example of what America can do when we come together, not a symbol for what we can't do or won't do.
And Obama began to venture onto the world stage, traveling to Kuwait, to Israel. And then in 2006, while promoting HIV/AIDS prevention, Obama went to Kenya, where his father grew up and where his grandmother still lives.
Obama's journey with his own personal background and his willingness to address it directly presents one of the most unique opportunities for Americans to elect a president who could deal with a region that most presidents, let's face it, have almost ignored.
In just 2 years, Obama became a star of the Democratic Party, crisscrossing the country to campaign for Democratic candidates in the 2006 midterm elections. While raising money and campaigning for others, Obama took the opportunity to speak out against the Bush administration, particularly the war in Iraq. Many started to think that Obama was looking less like a junior senator from Illinois and more like a candidate for president. At first, he said it wasn't so and pledged on Meet the Press to remain in the Senate.
I will serve out.
But just months later, he publicly opened the door to a possible run for the White House.
I have thought about the possibility.
In the 2006 midterm elections, the Democrats took control of both the House and the Senate for the first time in a dozen years.
With Democrats taking control, he actually got things moving in terms of the ethics reform, signature moment for him.
The nation seemed receptive to change, and the idea of Obama running for president in 2008 was starting to take hold and gaining momentum. He remained in the public eye and published a second book, The Audacity of Hope, landing him on the cover of Time magazine.
One of the things that magazine cover probably did is send a message to a lot of African American voters around the country who were concerned that he wasn't a truly electable African-American candidate.
The anticipation and the speculation continued to build.
Is he going to run?
I don't know.
I think Obama definitely has the edge.
The time has come. He's got to go now.
Then, on a frigid February morning in 2007, Barack Obama ended the speculation and embarked on a historic journey.
Let me begin by saying thanks to all of you. I know it's a little chilly. But I'm fired up.
February 10th, 2007, Springfield, Illinois. On a cold and windswept day, more than 15,000 people turned out to hear the announcement many had been waiting months to hear.
In the shadow of the old state capitol, where Lincoln once called on a house divided to stand together, where common hopes and common dreams still live, I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
It was really one of the most exciting days of my life. Busloads of us who went down to Springfield to cheer him on in a sub-zero day. You could just feel the chemistry and the energy in the crowd that day.
Peace, baby, we're in!
The Obama campaign got off to a fast start, raising more than $58 million during the first half of 2007, more than any other candidate. Almost a third of that came from small donors, people giving in increments of $200 or less.
If everybody here decides they want to get involved in the campaign and they want to contribute $5, $10, get on the internet. I don't want to have to raise money in Hollywood all the time. I'd rather raise it right here in Austin.
To me, it reflects the mindset of a community organizer. And when you apply that organizing strategy on a national scale, I think you see fantastic results that in many respects are unprecedented.
Obama's skill at fundraising quickly became a measure of success. Before a single vote had been cast, he was winning the money primary.
It is a stunning turnaround in the Democratic race. Barack Obama now raising so much money that Hillary Clinton is no longer the clear frontrunner and presumptive nominee.
All of us have to say, yes, we can.
And Obama was broadening his appeal in other ways, stirring real excitement among young people, minorities, and disaffected voters.
Everything about Obama says this is different. This is new. This is the future.
I am confident that we're going to have an entirely new and better America. Thank you, Los Angeles. I love you. Thank you.
Obama quickly became a phenomenon, the candidate as rock star. One of the most popular attractions on YouTube in 2007 was an independently produced music video called Obama Girl. But not everyone caught Obama fever, and among his detractors, things got ugly.
What's his middle name? What's his middle name?
Bob, come on, look.
Well, why don't we just say
You're attempting the same racist
No, that's not
that
racist.
you do all over
Hey,
the
let me
place.
explain something. That's not racist.
I've not ever seen a presidential candidate in a circumstance where saying his full name is a dirty trick.
Hate mail and threats directed at Obama prompted the U.S. Secret Service to assign a protective detail earlier in the race than ever before.
There are times where I fear for his safety. We have a tendency in this country to extinguish someone who brings a feeling of great hope to the masses. There are times when we were on the campaign trail where I have to concede that I was walking next to a black politician who reminds people of Bobby Kennedy.
Obama positioned himself as the candidate of hope and change. With disaffection growing over the war, the economy, and the incumbent president who presided over both, Obama's message had enormous appeal. But his rivals and many skeptical voters pressed him for more substance and questioned his readiness for office.
Issues are being raised about Pakistan. I think it's highly more irresponsible for people who are running for the presidency and seek that office to suggest we may be willing unilaterally to invade a nation here that we're trying to get to be more cooperative with us in Afghanistan and elsewhere.
With Obama's higher profile came a barrage of criticism. Too inexperienced, too black, too white, too much fancy rhetoric, too few policy details. Obama took the hits and did not waver.
Look, I find it amusing that those who helped to authorize and engineer the biggest foreign policy disaster in our generation are now criticizing me for making sure that we are on the right battlefield and not the wrong battlefield in the war against terrorism.
As the Obama campaign picked up speed, it even found its own battle cry. The first real test came in January 2008, the Iowa caucus. In an overwhelmingly white state, Obama pulled off a stunning upset. There you see it, the Democratic winner Barack Obama decisively beating John Edwards and presumed frontrunner Hillary Clinton.
You came together as Democrats, Republicans, and independents to stand up and say that we are one nation, we are one people, and our time for change has come.
The New Hampshire primary came just 5 days later, and Obama hoped for back-to-back victories, delivering a knockout to Hillary Clinton. But when the votes were counted, Clinton had won decisively, and the polls had been wrong.
A lot of people, Andrea, said that it was going to be a blowout. I was on TV all day, 10, 15 points. We knew that wasn't the case. It's now a one-on-one race. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama as we go forward. We're excited.
After Iowa and New Hampshire, the Democratic primary campaign would stretch on for months, a grueling battle for delegates and supremacy that would put the newcomer from Illinois to the biggest test of his life.
I am still fired up and ready to go. We've been asked to pause for a reality check. We've been warned against offering the people of this nation false hope.
Barack Obama's Iowa caucus victory put an end to the talk of Hillary Clinton as the inevitable Democratic nominee.
Thank you. Thank you.
But Clinton's win in New Hampshire just 5 days later made clear there was nothing inevitable about Obama either. In fact, the final outcome would not be known for months. The fight was long and hard and at times bitterly contentious.
What I said had nothing to do with their policies. I spent a lifetime fighting against Ronald Reagan's policies.
I did not mention his name.
Your husband did.
Well, I'm here. He's not.
Okay, well, I can't tell who I'm running against sometimes.
I was like, oh my God, like, that's not what he's about. That's not what this is about. It shouldn't be like this. And I just fear it was going to work, you know, against him.
The marathon primary campaign was a testing ground for Barack Obama and an opportunity for voters to get to know him better.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Illinois. I love you.
His strength soon became apparent. He was smart, confident, focused, and cool under fire. He collected endorsements from top Democrats, including the modern-day heirs to the Camelot era, Caroline Kennedy and her uncle Senator Edward Kennedy.
I feel change in the air. What about you?
But Obama also had his critics. He was attacked for his relationship with Tony Rezko, a Chicago developer and top Obama fundraiser who was subsequently convicted on federal fraud and corruption charges, just as Obama was later attacked for his association with former 60s radical William Ayers. But the biggest controversy erupted over the words uttered by Obama's longtime pastor Jeremiah Wright after video surfaced of some of Wright's incendiary sermons.
No, no, no. Not God bless America. God damn America.
The Clinton campaign pounced on the videotape.
We don't have a choice when it comes to our relatives. We have a choice when it comes to our pastors.
Reverend Wright stepped down from his position on an Obama campaign religious advisory committee, but the uproar continued and Obama was forced to respond.
Did I strongly disagree with many of his political views? Absolutely. As imperfect as he may be, he has been like family to me. I can no more disown him than I can disown the black community. I can no more disown him than I can disown my white grandmother, a woman who helped raise me, a woman who sacrificed again and again for me, a woman who loves me as much as she loves anything in this world, but a woman who once confessed her fear of black men who passed her by on the street, and who on more than one occasion has uttered racial or ethnic stereotypes that made me cringe.
Obama also used the speech as an opportunity to address the broader issue of race in American life, a risky decision, but one that drew widespread praise.
I'm the son of a black man from Kenya and a white woman from Kansas. I was raised with the help of a white grandfather who survived a depression to serve in Patton's army during World War II, and a white grandmother who worked on a bomber assembly line at Fort Leavenworth while he was overseas. I've gone to some of the best schools in America, and I've lived in one of the world's poorest nations. I am married to a black American who carries within her the blood of slaves and slave owners, an inheritance we pass on to our two precious daughters. I have brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, uncles, and cousins of every race and every hue scattered across 3 continents, and for as long as I live, I will never forget that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
The primary campaign continued, week after week, contest after contest. Hillary Clinton was tenacious. She won her share of states, but Obama never lost his early lead in delegates. When the primaries finally ended in early June, Barack Obama had come out on top.
Tonight, I can stand here and say that I will be the Democratic nominee for the President of the United States of America.
He immediately set his sights on his GOP opponent, Arizona Senator John McCain.
There are many words to describe John McCain's attempt to pass off his embrace of George Bush's policies as bipartisan and new, but change is not one of them.
Within days, Hillary Clinton bowed to the inevitable and endorsed Barack Obama.
Today, as I suspend my campaign, I congratulate him on the victory he has won and the extraordinary race he has run. I endorse him and throw my full support behind him.
Competing against Hillary Clinton all those months had made Obama a stronger candidate, but he still had vulnerabilities, including his limited experience in foreign affairs. In July, he embarked on an overseas tour that included a trip to Iraq and a speech to an enormous crowd in Berlin.
I know my country has not perfected itself. At times, we've struggled to keep the promise of liberty and equality for all of our people. We've made our share of mistakes, and there are times when our actions around the world have not lived up to our best intentions. But I also know how much I love America. I know that for more than 2 centuries, we have strived at great cost and great sacrifice to form a more perfect union, to seek with other nations a more hopeful world.
The next big order of business, the selection of a running mate. Obama chose a man with deep foreign policy experience, a fellow senator, a Washington veteran, and a former rival.
Joe Biden won't just make a good vice president, he will make a great vice president.
The next stop was Denver. And good evening from the Democratic National Convention in Denver. The convention went according to plan. That had not always been the case at past Democratic conventions, but in 2008, the party was unified, disciplined, and optimistic.
We can meet these challenges with Barack Obama. Yes, we can, and finally, yes, we will.
No way, no how, no McCain.
Barack Obama is ready to lead America and to restore American leadership in the world.
I accept your nomination to run and serve with Barack Obama, the next President of the United States of America.
I stand before you tonight because all across America, something is stirring. What the naysayers don't understand is that this election has never been about me. It's about you.
The convention was a national showcase for Barack Obama. Tens of millions of people tuned in to watch his acceptance speech. But the Republican convention the following week also drew a huge audience, and its big draw was John McCain's new running mate, Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. By the time the conventions were over, the presidential campaign had been underway for almost 2 years. The general election campaign that followed lasted barely 8 weeks, coinciding with a disastrous collapse in the nation's economy. It was a marathon of speeches, debates, attacks, and negative ads.
He promised better. He lied.
Lies and phony outrage and swift boat politics.
He's out of ideas, out of touch, and running out of time.
Although there's negative ads and personal attacks, fundamentals of our economy are strong, but these are very, very difficult times.
This morning we woke up to some very serious and some troubling news from Wall Street.
Tomorrow morning, I'll suspend my campaign and return to Washington.
My hope is that the debate goes forward. I intend to be there.
We have to use our military wisely.
We are winning in Iraq.
I want to provide a tax cut.
Let's not raise taxes on anybody.
Nice to meet you. Hey, can I call you Joe?
Joe the plumber.
Joe the plumber.
You become increasingly adorable. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. Is it?
We never give up. We never quit.
This is where change begins.
Just 1 day before the election, Obama received devastating news. His maternal grandmother, Madeleine Payne Dunham, had lost her battle with cancer at the age of 86. Before her death, she had cast an absentee ballot for Barack Obama.
Good morning, Election Day. After a hard-fought battle, it all boils down to today. 2 men, 2 parties.
Finally, November 4th had arrived, Election Day. Obama's get-out-the-vote operation kicked into high gear, and across the country, by the millions, Americans cast their ballots.
I voted.
For weeks, Obama had been leading in the polls, but recent history had taught Democrats to be wary, and suspense about the outcome remained high. Then, at 11 p.m. Eastern Time that night, as polls closed in Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, and California, Barack Obama went over the top. He'd been elected the 44th President of the United States. 11 p.m. on the East Coast. We're back on the air, and we have news. There will be young children in the White House for the first time since the Kennedy generation. An African American has broken the barrier as old as the Republic. An astonishing candidate, an astonishing campaign, a seismic shift in American politics. You are looking at the 44th President of the United States. The celebrations begin at 11 p.m. on election night. Let's listen to Grant Park in Chicago.
This is just an unbelievable moment. Just watching it is a great victory for our nation and for democracy. I certainly think that even those persons who don't agree with Senator Obama's policies or politics or maybe across the aisle, I think we need to put all of that aside for just a moment and acknowledge all the blood of our ancestors and forefathers of all races who have fought for justice and freedom, to see it materialize in the embodiment of this logo, as it were, that symbolizes something so much bigger than Senator Obama.
Barack Obama did it. It looks like with 284, as of this hour, 284 electoral votes. He did it with the coalition you've been watching on the screen. Young voters, minorities, they're hearing our voices on the big screen along with them. If he is the new face of America, they are too, and he represents them. Tom Brokaw, you want to take a crack at words?
I'm not sure anyone can. This is a very emotional moment for everyone in this country, and for the world for that matter. This is not just a moment in American history. This is a profoundly important passage out of the deep shadows of our racist past that began with that first slave offloaded on a ship. Race has been a curse for America for a long time. We have been working our way through it. And this young man that Andy Young calls a planetary leader, not just a civil rights leader, bright, articulate, instinctive, and cool, comes to us at a time when America had been so polarized, in its political arena especially. Politics had become so exclusionary, and he invited everyone in. The first time we heard him on a national stage, he said, there are Boy Scouts in red states and Boy Scouts in blue states. There's a God in a red state and a God in a blue state. It's the United States of America. And it was an unlikely journey when he began, but it's a great commentary on this country and its determination to move forward, that it rallied behind him during a time of extraordinary stress and believed in his message of hope. It's important that he has all those people because he's going to need their help.
In trying to figure out in advance how we would cover this moment, I thought of two things. Number one, the great David McCullough's scholarship on John Adams, that image he painted for us of the Adamses moving into the White House, where the plaster above the fireplace was still being finished by slaves. And number two, I thought of the man standing by to talk to us tonight, a guy who came within an inch of his life during the civil rights struggle, beaten bloody during that struggle, Congressman John Lewis. And Congressman, you are so kind to stand by with us and watch with us. You are the one man we wanted to talk to if and when this news broke tonight. And I guess they wouldn't have called it a struggle had it not been just a monumental effort that started in your time and continues to tonight.
Well, I must tell you, this is unreal, it's unbelievable, but I tell you, the struggle, the suffering, the pain, and everything that we tried to do to create a more perfect union, it was worth it. I just don't know how to express myself tonight. I'm overwhelmed by the success of the American people. This is not just a victory for Barack Obama, but this is a victory for the American people. It is saying something not just about our past, but our present and our future. I am convinced. Yes.
I was just going to ask who it makes you think of. What are some of the names? What are some of the faces flying through your head right now?
Well, I think especially Martin Luther King Jr. I was 15 years old when I first heard of Dr. King, growing up in rural Alabama, and later I met him and got involved in the civil rights movement. And I can recall when he stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial 45 years ago and said, I have a dream today, a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I think of President Lyndon Johnson when he introduced the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And near the end of that speech, as he spoke to the Congress and spoke to the American people, he said, "And we shall overcome." I was sitting next to Martin Luther King Jr., and Dr. King had tears coming down his face, and we all cried a little. And Dr. King said, "We will make it from Selma to Montgomery, and the Voting Rights Act will be passed." I think about President Kennedy, who gave us so much hope. I think about Robert Kennedy and the countless individuals that stood in those unmovable lines in Selma. I think about those 3 young civil rights workers in Mississippi, 2 whites from New York and an African-American from Mississippi who was beaten, shot, and killed. So some people gave their very life, and some of us gave a little blood to make tonight possible. It is a night of gratitude. I tell you, I feel more than lucky, but I feel very blessed to live to see this day.
How do you feel about your country, Congressman?
I feel so good about my country, our country. It's only in America, only in America. Just think a few short years ago, in this part of America, people couldn't even register to vote. They have to pass the literacy test, pay a poll tax. And today, these same individuals use the power of their simple vote to help elect the next president of the United States, an African American, a young man who will be a great leader, not just for America, but for the world. I'm very, very proud of my country tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next First Family of the United States of America.
Barack Obama's first appearance as president-elect came at Chicago's Grant Park before a massive, joyous crowd numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Millions more watched on television across the country and around the world. People knew they were witnessing history in the making.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America. As Lincoln said to a nation far more divided than ours, we are not enemies, but friends. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. And to those Americans whose support I have yet to earn, I may not have won your vote tonight, but I hear your voices. I need your help, and I will be your president too. And all those watching tonight from beyond our shores, from parliaments and palaces, to those who are huddled around radios in the forgotten corners of the world, our stories are singular, but our destiny is shared. And a new dawn of American leadership is at hand. This is our moment. This is our time to put our people back to work and open doors of opportunity for our kids, to restore prosperity and promote the cause of peace, to reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
The Obama campaign, from its graphics and slogan to the speeches delivered every day for the better part of 2 years, was all about hope. Barack Obama's supporters repeatedly chanted, "Yes, we can." Obama himself quoted his own political hero, Abraham Lincoln, in urging us all to call on the better angels of our nature. It's just an accident of history that the start of Obama's presidency coincides with the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth. It's just a coincidence that Obama accepted his party's nomination on the 45th anniversary of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s most famous speech. By getting elected president, Obama was given the opportunity to realize the dream in Dr. King's speech and to fulfill the hopes expressed by Lincoln. That's the beginning. Now comes the hard part. For all of us at NBC News, I'm Brian Williams, and thanks for joining us.